Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, over on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA, joined by Keith Smith on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, it's nice to be back. We took a day off yesterday, and for a few reasons, but it is still nice to be back. I felt like a part of my life was missing without seeing you yesterday.
Ah, man, I appreciate that. I wish everybody in my life felt that way about me. I'd probably be a much happier guy. But yeah, I am. It was tough yesterday. We were going through things. There was obviously not a lot of news
Yeah.
yesterday in the basketball world. And with what was going on in Ukraine, we decided, you know what, let's take a step back. We're gonna take a day off from the show, kind of let things breathe a little bit. I know for those who follow me on Twitter, a few people were, hitting me up on the side and asking me, "Hey, I know you had some reports about players." As far as I understand, all U.S. born players are now out of Ukraine and have all been, either returned back to the States or to elsewhere in Europe. A couple of the clubs completely relocated to other countries anyway. So, but basketball secondary clearly to that.
Mhm.
Everybody stay safe, be smart. Thoughts are with everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some terrible images coming out of there, and I mean, it's certainly a tough time for the world, and so
Yeah.
that's why we ultimately decided, you know what, let's take a step back as far
Yep.
as yesterday's show goes. But
But we're here
we
today,
are,
so
and we still
we'll.
have a lot to get into. We've got a
Yeah,
lot of stuff that
absolutely.
came out today. Everything was pretty much radio silence yesterday. Today we've heard quite a bit more, and I guess the place to start, because trade rumors are always fun, even when you're past the trade deadline. Let's start with the Philadelphia 76ers. Apparently, Joel Embiid wasn't necessarily on board the Harden train. Instead, he was trying to get Bradley Beal. At least that's according to Bill Simmons. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, Joel Embiid wanting to team up with Bradley Beal makes some sense, but then Daryl Morey ultimately went for James Harden. I don't know if Beal was even actually on the table at any point. But still interesting that that was Joel Embiid's preferred option.
Yeah, we in so this came out of Bill Simmons did a podcast with Zach Lowe, and they were just kind of reacting to what had happened at the trade deadline, talking about a lot of stuff going forward. And he was, hey, let's compare notes from the Simmons Harden trade. And he came back with a whole thing about, all right, yeah, here's where it is. We're going to so let me rephrase. He said Joel Embiid pushed very hard for Bradley Beal.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sixers like, we don't know. What about James Harden? And he was continued to push for Bradley Beal. I felt, in Simmons' words, was he felt like they were a better fit with Bradley Beal on the roster, which we're gonna find out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we may never know if Bradley Beal was a better fit because we may never see that pairing, but we're gonna find out how him and Harden fit together as early as
Yeah.
tonight. We're recording this on Friday night. Sounds like Harden's going to make his Philly debut in Minnesota, so I think that'll be fun. I know I'll be checking that one out for
Mm-hmm.
sure. But it was then he went on to say Harden never really wanted to go to Philly in the first place, that he pushed for the trade to Brooklyn. And then him and Lowe kind of talked about how much did things go sideways when Kyrie didn't want to play. So it was kind of interesting to listen to it yourself if you want to go hear the whole conversation. But yeah, it was at least notable. And I tend to, when Simmons speaks up on things, I tend to listen a little because he doesn't do it a lot. He's not constantly kind of throwing things out there, and he is connected to a lot of people so around the NBA. So yeah, for what it's worth, I mean, as you said, didn't happen. So not like we should freak out over this, but it'll be one of those things where if we get into this partnership doesn't work, then people will start yelling and screaming, "Oh, we should have
Mm-hmm.
got Bradley Beal," right?
Well, and I do wonder, was Washington, for any package, was Washington even putting Bradley Beal on the trade market? Because if he wasn't, then all of this it doesn't really matter. And of course, it didn't happen, so maybe it doesn't matter that much anyway. But this is what really jumped out at me, was that Bradley Beal got hurt. It was announced his season is over, and Joel Embiid still said, "No, I want Bradley Beal." That tells you it wasn't like it was close in Embiid's mind and Embiid just kind of slightly leaned Beal. No, if the guy's going to
Yeah.
be out all season, and so you're not going to play with him until next season, and he's still saying no,
Well, I think it.
go ahead.
Let me. I should have said this. I think he was trying to say that was before Beal got hurt. He was pushing for them to go get Beal. I'll be honest, I was in the car, so I was only half paying attention, but I think that's what he said. But yeah, but still, it is still notable of, hey, go get Beal, because I mean the Harden stuff, it didn't come out all that much after Beal was out for the season, so it had to have been at least somewhat close.
Yeah, it was close. My understanding was it was like, okay, and maybe I phrased this improperly. So it was Beal gets hurt. People are saying, "Oh no, what's going to happen here?" And Embiid's still saying, "Go get him," and then it comes out that he's
Hmm.
out for the season. So
Yeah, yeah, that may have
that's
been the
that's
way it went down.
probably the order of events there. But in any event, it seems like in Joel Embiid's mind, Bradley Beal was by a decent amount the better target than James Harden was. Now, obviously, Daryl Morey didn't agree, and I still think Harden and Embiid can be a great duo. We'll see what
Mhm.
happens, but just interesting to note that that was not Embiid's preference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's see where it goes.
Let's talk a little bit about Zach LaVine, though. Let's get into him because this is another star level guard, but this is a guy that I don't think is going to be going anywhere. He had a comment recently
No.
about being happy with how aggressive the Bulls are being, that how the Bulls are willing to pay the tax and all that kind of stuff. I think that tells us Zach LaVine is probably not going to be leaving Chicago anytime soon.
Yeah, this was out of a feature with Jake Fisher. Did a one-on-one with Levine, and he had that. Levine basically said he loves how aggressive the Bulls have been in remaking the roster, going back to the Vucevic trade last season, and then going getting DeRozan and Ball and Caruso this offseason. He's very happy with that. And then in that article, Fisher notes that the belief around the league, and it matches, I think, everything we've all heard, is the Bulls know they're going to be a tax team next year when they re-sign Levine, and probably seven, sort of deep into the tax. I'm not going to say they're going in, to Nets Warriors levels here. Probably not, but enough so that it'll be, a significant tax penalty. And I think what's important for them to know on this is probably, if you remember, we talked about Tristan Thompson taking part of the biannual exception. Well, that's probably why the Bulls know we're going to be deep enough into the tax that we're not even going to have that tool functionally available. So, yeah, why not use it this year to go get a guy who we need? And he was actually pretty good for them last night in their win that they won. So, yeah, that's, I think, you know, all adds together. And now, yet another really good free agent coming kind of off the board in a sense if he's just going to resign with the Bulls. Uh, our live shows over free agency might just be me and you breaking down Marvel movies or something. The way this is shaping up,
That's right. That's probably what we're going to wind up doing at some point.
right? Yes. Team X signed backup point guard for league minimum. That was the only thing that happened today. Now, what's your 15th favorite Marvel
That's
movie?
what we're going to get into. Let's talk the Hulk versus Thor, real fight. Who would win? Let's get
Yeah,
into that.
exactly. Who's more overpowered, Captain Marvel or Wanda?
Oh, oh, good
Discuss.
one. Good one. Oh man. Okay, let's
We're
I
off the
tried my
rails.
brain for a moment tried to link Marvel to Anfernee Simons and I
Oh,
couldn't come up with anything there. I couldn't
yeah,
quite get there. There's got to
yeah.
be
That was tough.
something. There was Wonder Man. His name was Simon, but I just don't think I can get there. But
Nope.
in any event, it sounds like the Blazers are going to be keeping Anfernee Simons for a while now. We know that's their plan. That was their plan with the moves that they made in terms of the trades that they made at the trade deadline. They want to keep this guy. He's been absolutely fantastic. Very, very good player here. He's developed into a great player. And here's what he said: I 100% want to stay in Portland. He's talking about he'll be a restricted free agent this summer. And I
Mhm.
think everybody wants me to stay as well. I think it's the perfect fit for me. So when we look at this summer's free agent class, Anfernee Simons technically is part of it, but I don't think he's really part of it. I think that the deal will get done with the Blazers pretty quick.
Yeah, my guess is this one doesn't even become like a
Mm-hmm.
thing. What I'm thinking may happen here is he has a sort of low cap hold because he was picked late in the first round, so he only has about an $11 million cap hold or so, if I remember correctly. So my guess is if Portland does in fact go the cap space route, what they'll probably do is agree to a contract with Simons. 11.8 million is his cap hold. So they'll agree to a contract with him. Then that will become one of the last pieces of business that they do. They'll make other trades, other signings, whatever they have to do to build up that roster. I'm not convinced that Portland may not flip this thing relatively quickly. I think there's a chance they may come out of this okay. They've got to make the right moves here, going into this off season. But Lillard, Simons, Josh Hart, let's see what they do with Nurkic. Clearly they're not pushing him to play through this plantar fasciitis, which maybe means he might be part of the longer term future there. Bunch of cap space. Let's see where they go. But yeah, I think Anfernee Simons is going to get paid, handsomely here. My guess is 17, 18 million dollars a year range, probably for him on average annual value, maybe 20. Don't my one piece of advice, don't kill all your negotiating power here yet. Let's see if Indiana or Detroit wants to get involved maybe and talk offer sheet or something like that before we just say, hey, we're coming back to Portland. But my guess is that's exactly how it goes, and he gets paid well.
Teams have gotten themselves in the past into a little bit of trouble by doing that, haven't they? Where it seems like they're bidding against themselves. Yeah. And then they wind up with a contract that I'm not saying that Simons is going to be a bad, like if he's 17 million, like I think that's perfectly reasonable for what he's producing. I mean, he's at 17 points per game this season while shooting 40% from three, 45% from the field. He's been fantastic, operating on and off ball as well. But that said, every million matters. Which sounds ridiculous, right? When you take a step back and you don't think, of course, $1 million matter, but in NBA terms, even $1 million matters. If it's 16 instead of 17, that could wind up being the difference between being able to make a move down the line or not. And so it's important that the Blazers explore every option here. At the same time, though, they want to maintain a good relationship with this guy that they see as one of their main pieces moving forward. So we'll see what number they arrive at, but I don't think Anfernee Simons is going anywhere. And then the question for the Blazers becomes, can you take all the stuff that you got in all the trades that you made at the trade deadline and turn that into a much better team this offseason? Simons is a piece to that, but there's a lot of other moves that are going to have to come as well.
Yeah, it's funny too. Right? I think a little bit is going on with Simons, where if I think back to Colin Sexton, when people were really beating up on Colin Sexton a year ago. Now, his free agency is going to be weird because he's coming off this injury, so we'll see how that impacts. But people were saying, he's just, good stats on a bad team and he's a gunner and all this stuff. And you and I shared the opinion of, hey, look at his numbers. He's not. He's pretty efficient. And Simons is pretty efficient. As you said, he's a 45, 40, 90 guy. Almost basically, from the field. So I mean, that's good. Like that's I think people should feel pretty comfortable in what this guy can do as a scorer. Now, if you don't believe in the jump shot, okay, but he's 40% this year. He's actually at 39% from three for his career. So that's, tells me this guy can shoot the ball. And now what's happening is his game's kind of rounding out. He's up to almost 4 assists per game. So yeah, I would feel pretty comfortable giving Anfernee Simons a, big chunk of money, 17, 18 million. I feel good about that as an average salary.
With a few exceptions, in general, my philosophy is you want to pay a player for what you believe they are going to be while they're under contract as opposed to what they have been. And so I think that increase for Anfernee Simons is perfectly warranted based on what we can project him to be. And in fact, he could wind up being a value on that deal if he continues on this current trajectory.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. We've got a bunch of injuries to get through, which that's this season, right? I guess that's really every season, but still, we do have a bunch of injuries to get to. Before we get to that, oh boy, let's talk about the drama with my Lakers real quick. So Rich Paul, through Shams Charania, made it known, this was on the Pat McAfee show, that they, whether it's LeBron James, Rich Paul, Klutch Sports, named all three of them, they don't have any problem with Rob Pelinka, the Lakers, whatever. So pushing back on that narrative, we had heard there was some talk about this is like the beginning of a war, which obviously unfortunate timing with that statement came out just a couple days before all the Ukraine stuff started. But not great timing and everything. But again, that came out before all this stuff happened. And there was some talk of okay, LeBron's upset with Rob Pelinka. Klutch Sports isn't happy with him for not making a move at the trade deadline. Things of that nature. Now you get Rich Paul coming out and saying, no, 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 that's not the case. To me, it feels like it's damage control to a degree. I think
Mhm.
most likely, are they happy? No, probably not. They're probably not thrilled that, moves weren't made at the trade deadline and everything, because LeBron typically wants moves made to improve his team and give him
Mhm.
a shot to win while he's 37 years old. That's understandable. Did LeBron make comments that could be seen as passive aggressive? Yes. But if you're the one making those comments, that's the beauty part of it being passive aggressive, is you can come back out and go, "What? No, that's not what I meant at all. Why are you taking it that way?" So I still think there's going to be pressure on the Lakers to do stuff this summer. But regardless, we should note that Rich Paul said there is no problem. Everything's good.
Yeah, I think this is one of everybody let this all go a little
Yes.
too far. And the reality is LeBron James may be the most media savvy player we've had in our lifetime, just because he grew up knowing this is how this works, right? And I got to play this game. And for years now, this is nothing new. For years, he's been kind of doing the, well, we've I'm not going to close the door
Yep.
on this, or I could do that, or I could, all these things. And it's like, all right, do we get it? Like, and I'm not criticizing him, but I don't know that and we're as guilty of it as everybody else is. Then we're like, oh, LeBron
Mm-hmm.
said, right? And you get all fired up. Is he going back to the Cavs and all these things? Couple of things that I think were forgotten here. One is he's under contract for next year. Like I started seeing all these people like he might just leave for Cleveland this summer on what a
He'd have to get
vacation.
traded.
Like, yeah, he'd have to get traded. And the Cavs have kind of quietly said, yeah, we're
We're not
not
it.
blowing up the
Right.
roster to do that. Um, I would that is maybe worth a little more discussion of what would happen there if it really came to that. Like, are they really going to say, nah, sorry, we really like Laurie
Mm-hmm.
Markkinen too much to trade for LeBron James? I mean, come on, let's not get too stupid. But I think the reality is he's doing what he did in Cleveland, what he did in Miami, what he did in Cleveland the second time, to some extent, what he's done with the Lakers before. It's just put a little bit of public pressure on. Hey, I want to win championships, so let's get these things going. Now we can yell and scream that, then stop picking bad players yourself. But the reality is, it's just what he doesn't want is anybody coming back and being like, well, we're still, this is what it is for the next 2 years. And too bad. Like he's just basically saying, hey, I want to do something to be competitive. So I don't think that. And yeah, and yeah, I mean, good on Rich Paul and Clutch Sports for coming back and saying, hey, we're not, we don't have a huge problem with the Lakers here. Let's calm all this
Mm-hmm.
down of like, because you had people over the last 4 or 5 days here, maybe week now, saying LeBron's leaving Cleveland or leaving LA to go back to Cleveland, or well, what if he goes to the Clippers? What if he goes, any number of places? Like the only thing out of all of that I took to be completely genuine is he's going to play with his son,
Mm-hmm.
wherever that is, whenever that happens. That is going to be where he goes. Anything between now and then, it'll come when it comes.
He is eligible for an extension this summer. So we'll see
Yep.
what happens there. Obviously, if
Let
come July, the Lakers like don't make any moves and everything's pretty much the same, we'll see what happens in August, right? But
Yeah. And that's the important thing.
no,
Sorry
go ahead.
to break in here because I've seen people missing on this. He's not eligible to sign his extension until August 4th, I believe it is. So if people start panicking July 1, 2, 3, LeBron hasn't done an extension, that's it, it's over. He can't actually sign it till August 4th. And nobody moves free agency at their own pace more than LeBron James
Mhm.
does. So that August 4th, they may turn into September 4th. We may be, sitting here doing our off-season wrap-up shows and season preview shows, still wondering if he's going to do an extension because he's certainly not going to push into it.
Well, let me just double check my calendar here because I can tell you what date it's going to be. Okay, here we go. I
When
I
are you
leave
going on
on
vacation?
vacation August 20th. So that it'll be the 21st or something like that. That's when it's going to be that's going to come out, because that's just how things tend to work. But I think, just to put a bow on this, it comes down to, and I agree with what Brian Windhor said. I think ultimately LeBron wants to be a Laker. He wants the Lakers to be successful. And that's what we're moving forward with. He's not trying to leave the
Yep.
Lakers. He just wants to put pressure on them to get them
Yep.
to do some things this summer. I think that's what's happening right now. That's what's been going on. Could it ultimately lead to a split? Potentially. And again, that's where I've said before, if LeBron's thinking I want to get out after he sees what they do in July, my preference from the Lakers side would be that he goes to the Lakers and says, "Hey, I'm going to leave next summer. You guys now have the option, do what you're going to do, either trade me or we spend the next year together and then I leave then." That would be my preference if they go down that path. But I don't think that's the first option for anybody. I don't think that's the first option for LeBron. I don't think that's the
No.
first option for the Lakers. Flip
Agreed.
into the Cavs side of things really quick. We talk about reading between the lines, the game within the game. If you're the Cavs, of course you're putting that kind of information out there right now. You absolutely should be.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want is the guys on your team who have been way more successful this season than anybody ever thought, thinking that you're not appreciative of what they've done and that you're suddenly
Yeah.
making goo-goo eyes at LeBron James again. So this
Yep.
is about
Yeah.
making sure that the guys on your team don't have their chemistry affected by suddenly there's these LeBron rumors. You're pushing back and saying, no, 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 we love the guys that we've got. So you make sure they still feel warm and fuzzy, and they should.
Yep.
They've been great this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think, I mean, whatever's going to happen with this situation will happen. And all I'll say is if LeBron decides he wants a trade in this universe where dudes who are seventh and eighth men on teams have no problem saying I want traded, LeBron James is certainly not going to
Mhm.
hesitate to say I would like a trade, right? I mean, it's just let's not be dumb, right? He's just gonna say, hey, let's go. So yeah, I think we're in a spot here where you know there's no I I would be stunned beyond stunned if he doesn't play and finish the entirety of next season with the Lakers. I would, nothing would surprise me more.
Agreed. Agreed.
Well, unless he played with the Celtics, then that would be weird. And I would be very shocked by that.
All right, let's get into our laundry list of injuries here.
Ugh.
Well, actually, okay.
Let's do the
Here's a good
Cavs.
one. Oh, okay, you want to do the Cavs?
Okay. Oh
Okay,
no,
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna
Go
say
to
the good one. This is just the positive. Dylan Brooks back
yeah.
sometime early in March. We tend to forget, given how good the Grizzlies have been. Now they lost, I believe it was last night to the Wolves, but how good the Grizzlies have been. We tend to forget that, hey, Dylan Brooks has been out for a while, or even the stretches without John Morant where they've still been successful. But they've been missing him, and he's a big part of their team.
Mhm.
So having him back by early
Their
March
second
helps.
leading scorer. I think I'm not trying to disparage Desmond Bain, who's been
Hmm.
awesome, but I think we all got so excited about Desmond Bain that we forgot a little bit that Dylan Brooks is actually their second leading
Hmm.
scorer on the season, not Desmond Bain. So
Yeah, so him coming back, I mean, I just
yeah,
like there's times where you question his shot selection, and that's true. And
oh yeah,
maybe okay, a lot of
yeah,
times,
a lot
a
of
lot of
times.
times. But so maybe you need to rein that in a little bit. But he's also got his temperament fits this Grizzlies team. They've got
Hmm.
that fight in them, and you kind of
Yep.
want that guy come playoff time
Yeah.
that's just going to come in with a chip on his shoulder and is not going to be overawed by the moment or anything like that. So
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks coming back, I think he helps.
Rarely does he kind of do the whole "get out of my way, I got this" thing in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's more often in a like, all right, I'm out here with most of the second
Hmm.
unit, like I got this, and he 100% believes like, oh cool, LeBron's across from me, no big deal, I
Yeah.
don't care. Like I got it. I'll lock him up. I'll score on him. Like he just, and that's you
Mhm.
need that. Every team needs a guy like that whose attitude is like, I don't care who you are, I'm going. And but except for maybe the Grizzlies, I don't know if they need any more guys with an attitude like that. They've got a whole roster. I mean, I think it's awesome.
Mhm.
I don't know if I've said it on here, and maybe I have, so I apologize if I'm repeating this. But if you don't want them to talk, shut them up. And you know what? Good for Patrick Beverly last night because they won. And then Beverly came on and was like, "I hear a whole lot of talking. What's going on out of that?" Good. The NBA is better when everybody's talking trash and going at each other this way. Like I love it. I mean, let's just get nuts. Let's talk. And again, you don't want them to talk, beat them. They won't talk then.
Let's stop being so nice. Everybody's
Yeah,
so nice
yeah.
in today's game.
Stop being nice and start getting real.
I watched this is oh is that going real world there? When people
That was
when
going
people
real
stop
well.
being
Oh yeah,
polite and start getting real.
that's it.
Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
I, I paraphrased it, but
That's
yeah,
a flashback right there.
yeah.
So I was watching, I was flipping through the channels, and all of a sudden I see, okay, Milwaukee versus Phoenix, or no, Milwaukee versus Philly. I mean, and I went, they're not playing. What's going on here? And I turned it on. I went, oh my gosh, it's from 1986. I didn't realize that it wasn't
Oh,
in the title, and I watched just a couple of possessions. I mean, watched everybody in the paint. The refs were the only ones behind the 3-point
oh
line,
yeah.
But Charles Barkley gets the ball on the low block, and his defender comes over and just puts his shoulder into him, knocks him off, gets the foul call. But I'm like, that would have been a flagrant today.
Yeah,
It was a little
yep,
bit of a different game back then, and then we've
a
gotten
little
much
bit.
nicer since then.
I mean, our two teams, Kevin
Oh
McHale
yeah,
on that
Kurt
famous
Rambis.
play where he wiped out Kurt Rambis. Nothing. It was a
Yeah,
foul.
it wasn't
That was
flagrant.
all it was. It was just a foul. Like no, nobody got thrown out. Now it'd be like, all right, Kevin McHale, see you next
Yeah,
season. You're, you're suspended for. I don't care if it happened in game one of the year. You're suspended for the rest of the year. We'll see you then. So yeah, yeah, I think all right. Let's get into the rest of
yeah,
these injuries because there's still quite a few of
yeah.
them.
Victor Oladipo and Markieff Morris both getting closer, but not back
Mhm.
yet. Both
Yep.
working on a return, but and Morris, I mean, is this all still stemming from the Jokic situation, the whiplash, all of that?
Yeah, it
That's
seems to be. It's still yeah.
oof.
And it's a little worrisome, right? Because this is a guy who's had a history of neck
Hmm.
issues now for a few years. So, maybe there is something there. But yeah, Eric Spoelstra said they're doing a lot, but then said their return's not imminent, but he didn't want to get into more details. So, that could mean just about
Hmm.
anything. So we'll see. My guess is maybe in the next week or two we see them.
If you're a Lakers fan and you've been listening to Frank Vogel at all, the phrase would be they're a ways away. That's what he says
Yep.
that about it. It can be
Oh yeah.
that can
Oh,
mean
I
3 days.
remember from his Orlando
Yes, that
days.
can mean 3 days.
Yep.
That can mean 3 months.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
an answer without answering. Derrick Rose. This one came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Ankle procedure. Now he's going to miss more time, and I mean, obviously, that's you don't want to hear that about a veteran player like Derrick Rose, who was just working his way back,
Mhm.
and now he's
Yeah.
having another procedure. But we just went over the news what day before yesterday about Kemba Walker now being out of the rotation. Does this? I wonder if this changes that decision at all.
Yeah, my guess is no. I mean, I'm thinking they'll just get by with Emmanuel
Hmm.
quickly, Alec Burks, and then they do have Ryan Archidiakono, who they did sign over the break or I guess maybe it was just before the break to a rest of season contract. So my guess is they're not going to change anything with Kemba. We've seen some subsequent reporting too now that Kemba doesn't want to buy
Hmm.
out because he presumably, which I said he probably doesn't want to give up
Yeah.
any money, right? It's probably you just want to straight waive me, great, straight waive me and I'll take my money and I'll go elsewhere. But he doesn't want to give up any money. So after giving up a bunch to get out of OKC in the first place. So yeah, kind of interesting. Let's see. Hey, I want to add to because we I forgot to give them to you in the rundown. John Collins is still out
Mm.
with
Yeah.
that right foot strain. Um, that's worrisome because we thought he might be back after the All-Star break, and he's still not back yet. Has been doing some practicing, but he was doubtful for yesterday's game, but now he's been ruled out a day early for tomorrow's game. So yesterday being Thursday, ruled out a day early for Saturday. That's never a great sign. That usually means it's not close
Yeah.
for a guy to get back with that one. And then the big one I forgot, OG Anunoby
Hmm.
fractured ring finger. This he wasn't on any list, wasn't dealing with anything. He had been having a pain in his right ring finger that he'd been going through. But now he's going to be out for at least a little bit. They re-examined it when the pain wasn't, or let me rephrase, when the pain was still there after the break, and found that he has at least a small fracture. So he's going to be on the shelf for a little bit as well.
That's a tough blow. But I mean, I would imagine with something like that, playoff time by then he should be as
Yeah,
long as it's not anything extensive, and
sure.
that wouldn't be the case
Yep.
if if it was just kind of a pain that was bothering him a
But
little
in
bit.
that playing race,
Could matter.
missing guys in the East just at all just makes it a little harder to get to where you want to be.
Frank Vogel did yesterday give us an update on Anthony Davis, where he's at. He is off crutches, but
Yep.
moving, according to Vogel, very gingerly around the practice facility. So that 4 to 6 week timeline, where we are what, a week into that now. and he's still moving pretty gingerly, but no longer on crutches. That I don't know. I don't know if that's where he would be expected to be, but hobbling around is probably not what Lakers fans want to hear in terms of AD at this point.
Mhm.
Let's jump to the Cavs. We'll finish with them. So Karis
Yeah,
LeVert,
a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
Karis LeVert 1 to 2 weeks with a foot sprain, and he's the newest Cav to come in, and a guy that was expected to help them out, and now he's out for a bit. And Darius Garland is dealing with a back issue that they're going to have to manage. This is huge. Like both those guys being out, obviously together that hurts, right? Both those guys
Mhm.
dealing with injuries because Karis LeVert was going to try to take some of the load off of Darius Garland, but if this is something that they just have to manage regarding Darius Garland for the rest of the season, I would drastically lower their playoff odds if Darius Garland was not
Yeah.
100. Like where Garland goes, that's where the Cavs are going to go. If he is great in the postseason, they've got a decent shot of
Yep.
advancing, moving on, making some real noise. Without him, I think that's the key piece where things would really start to fall apart.
The thing too is, right, we've kind of been saying, can they maintain? Can they maintain? And now they've lost 3 in a row. So obviously that bridges the break, but they lost last night to Detroit. Not a, you know, it's a pretty bad loss considering where the Pistons are in the standings. Um, Celtics are now only a game behind the Cavs for moving up into fifth. Uh, it's only 1.5 games between third and
Mm-hmm.
sixth, so let's not get too crazy. They're calling them out or anything as far as they're falling out, but they're only 2 games now up on Toronto for the play-in. Also, too, while we've been recording, Rajon Rondo is out for 1 to 2
Oh,
weeks too, with a right great toe sprain. So that's that's not great either. That happened in the fourth quarter last night. So it's a treatment and rehab, and then they'll update. So we'll be out approximately 2 weeks, is what they're saying. So let's see where that goes. Now you're down. Well, maybe down Garland, right? That's probably gonna be more of a day-to-day thing the rest of the year. LeVert, your other ball handler, now Rondo. So now you're back to, all right, let's make it work with guys like Brandon Goodwin and figuring things out. As we talked about Kevin Pangos, who had been brought in this offseason, was gone. I wonder if they go looking on the point
hmm.
guard market now. It's a little bare. There's not a ton of options, but maybe they go looking. He's not that far away. Isaiah
There
Thomas,
you go.
was dropped. They had another big game last night. There. I mean, I know his first time through with Cleveland didn't go that well, but you got to get something out of that position. So, let's see. It's unfortunate because when teams have these kind of injuries, you do eventually pass the point of no return of it's just too many guys out and you just can't maintain where you're at. So my guess is I'm going to say they slip and fall into the play-in when all is
Ooh,
said and done, because I think it's just
it
going
could
too
happen.
far for them now.
Could
Yeah,
happen.
it's going to be close
I
if
hope,
not.
like, if it happens, I don't want it to happen because of injury. I mean,
Yeah,
this is a team that's been so
yeah,
great. Like,
hmm
it's just injuries suck.
yeah,
Just turn
yeah.
turn
Real
turn
fun
injuries
scenarios,
off. Adam Silver, come on.
right? It would be amazing if we could imagine if we had like one healthy season, and it was like you could really like get into it and be like, oh yeah, this team was truly the
Hmm.
best because they made it all the way through and you'd have a whole bunch of that. But I mean, I know that's a extreme fantasy land I'm living in with that one.
Hey, I do have a little bit of positive news here, injury wise, that just
Oh,
came out.
yeah,
Malcolm Brogdon, now
yeah, it's
now
gonna play
probable
tonight,
to
right?
play tonight, according to news coming out of a TV station in Pawnee. So Brogdon has played twice in 2022.
Yeah,
He played your
yeah,
Celtics and
that's
my
rough.
Lakers. And that's it. And they've
Yep.
been like random games where he's suddenly back in. He's been dealing with the
Yeah.
Achilles issue, but now he should be back tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there's something
Well,
worth
and
noting.
you want to get a look if you're the Pacers. How does he look with Tyrese
Hmm.
Halliburton? Right, that's your goal now over these last 20 games or so. Is what does that look like? Or you're just trying to how do all these pieces fit together? Halliburton, Brogdon, Heald, Duarte. In our backcourt. Where does that go? So yeah, that's yeah, get him
Hmm.
back out there and see what that looks like. It's not about winning games, right? Where that ship has long since sailed for the Pacers now, but now it's about how do these pieces fit together. So that's good news, for
Yep.
Indiana.
Yes, indeed. All right. I think that's about it for today, unless we've got any other breaking news that's going on right now. But we are,
Not seeing anything.
fingers crossed. We're now back from the All-Star break. And here we go, entering the home stretch. It's weird. So many people point to this as like the midpoint of the season when it's very much not. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, the second
Yeah.
half of the season. No, it's like the final quarter of the season or whatever. But in any event, or maybe the final third of the season, however it breaks down.
Yeah, it's funny because I think when they say that, it's because they're saying it because and we still have 4 months to
Mhm.
go till the finals come, and we're 4 months into the season
Yeah,
roughly. But it's we're like some teams only have like 6 weeks to
right.
go. Half the league is going to be done here in another 6 weeks or so. So yeah, I get where you're coming from on that one. I agree.
So, well, there's a lot of basketball ahead of us, and we'll see what happens here in the final few weeks. There's going to be some tight races in both the East and the West. We'll see how it all shakes out. But everybody, we appreciate all of you joining us. Make sure give us some reviews over on Apple Podcasts. We always appreciate those. I've seen a few of those coming in lately. So toss us a review over there, preferably a 5-star rating as well. And you can find us pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You can find us at any of those places. But again, toss us some Apple Podcast reviews. That definitely does help out our show.
Yeah.
And then make sure you turn on notifications here on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. That way you get notified every time we put out a new video. So we'd appreciate that as well. And that should do it for today. Appreciate all you guys for joining us. Till next time, stay safe and see ya.